it is a project that really inspires me, and what I like the most of it is that you can read about underrepresented community.
Yeah, I love the diversity of Global Voices. It represents so many countries, and so just being able to be in such a network, helps me build my craft as a journalist as well.
They are a bunch of great people. They are trying to fill the gap left by the mainstream media in trying to tell the stories of ordinary people.
I want Australia to be part of this fantastic organisation and to share all the things that are happening. And there are many voices in Australia that need to be heard too, that don't normally get heard. But I stay in Global Voices because of all the fantastic people and the new people I keep meeting.
You're watching The World from Below, and today we're talking with Jillian York, Director of International Freedom of Expression at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and she's also a board member, of Global Voices. Global Voices featured in the clip we just showed. Now, tell me a bit more about Global Voices and the role that it plays.
Sure. So Global Voices is a citizen media organization and really a community that was founded in 2004 with the idea that there were underrepresented voices that were starting to emerge on blogs, and we wanted to make sure that those voices were amplified and heard by a greater audience.
So what kind of people are involved with Global Voices?
I would say all kinds of people. We're a huge community. I'm not even sure how large we are in numbers. I would say probably close to 1,000 at this point, and from more than 160 countries. And so we have translators, volunteer authors, and activists who just want to be part of this community and make this, make the news a little bit more distributed and democratized.
And so can anybody be involved, or do you need certain skills or expertise?
No, absolutely anybody can be involved. We do have people who, originally everyone wrote in English, and at this point, we do have people who wanted to be part of the community but whose English was not fluent. And so now we have people writing in their native languages and being translated back into English. And so it's really a fascinating distributed community.
Yeah, I think it's interesting talking about mass surveillance and then talking about an organisation like Global Voices. The internet and the technology of today has offered great potential for things like mass surveillance to really impede our quality of life and our ability to participate in democracy. But organisations like Global Voice really show what potential is unlocked by the internet and technology today, and really it is transforming journalism. I mean, is that your understanding of what is the contribution that an organisation like Global Voices can make?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's just to give an example. I mean, we're looking at what's happening right now in Israel and Palestine, and Global Voices has had a strong community of individuals from both places for years. And so a lot of times what we'll see is articles published about reactions to mainstream media, showing what people really think about what the media is saying and kind of correcting some of that information. And I think that that's just a fascinating example of the way that this community can help make the media a little bit more accurate and a little bit better.
Can you give us some other examples of digital activism that you found exciting in recent times as a counterpoint, I suppose, to the more upsetting stories that we might hear about mass surveillance?
Sure. Well, I think a great example actually is the SOPA blackout that happened in 2012. So the Stop Online Piracy Act was an act that would have enabled censorship around issues of copyright. Now, copyright's something that a lot of people would consider to be the realm of the privileged, but when you think about it, it really, it is an issue that impedes innovation, that, could have chilling effects of unfree expression as well. And so that blackout not only had legions of American blogs and American organizations and large platforms like Wikipedia as well, but also other people around the world joined in to share their voices and to black out their websites. And I think that was a great example of positive activism around some of these issues that really had an impact.
And do you see things like that continuing into the future? What's your prediction for how activism and surveillance and those two counterpoints might unfold over the next sort of 5 years?
Sure. So, it's actually been really fascinating to watch other people in other countries take up that model of the SOPA protest. We've seen blackouts in Philippines, Jordan, a number of other countries. And I think that now people are really innovating in their methods around the world. And it's time that we Americans and maybe Australians as well look to the ways in which people in other parts of the world are using and innovating on online activism and sort of start taking lessons from that.
I think there is great scope for activists to collaborate as well with people who might be more technically skilled. Traditionally, those two worlds don't often meet, but they're being forced to more and more as these issues throw up issues that cross that divide. I think it's interesting looking at Global Voices as well, some of the ways in which new ways of presenting information that might otherwise be considered too dense, so that technical people have a real contribution to make to activists in terms of presenting information and creating transparency around government. Is that your experience, or have you got examples of that you can tell us about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think a really good example of that would be right now there are a lot of tools being built to try to help people basically fight back against surveillance, so security tools. And many of these types of tools and protocols have existed for years, but people found them too difficult to use. And so now what you're seeing is increased collaboration between technologists and designers and design thinkers and usability experts and all sorts of different people who are trying to make these tools more usable for the general population. I think that that's the kind of positive collaboration that we need to see more of.
Yeah, it's really an opportunity for people to take back some control over the internet, which might otherwise seem far too large for them. And I'm hopeful that with the help of technically minded people that can happen, and I'm sure the EFF will be at the forefront of that in years to come.
I hope so. I'm also hopeful. I think that ultimately, citizens will triumph.
Yeah, well, that's a positive note to finish on. And that's all we have time for on this week's special episode of The World from Below. I'd like to thank our guest, Jillian York. I'd also like to thank all our crew and our producers and our host, RMI TV. You've been watching The World from Below. Thanks for joining us.